Imagine you're standing in the middle of the arena. 50,000 people above you are staring down. They're not here to cheer for you. They're here to see which gate you'll leave through. In this place, the entrance doesn't decide anything, but the exit does. And that's not even the scariest part. What's scarier is that this great structure, a symbol of an entire empire's power, once collapsed in half. Not because of war, not because of an enemy, but because the ground beneath it used to be a place that was never meant to carry that kind of weight. That collapse is still there today, like a wound that never heals. And that very wound exposed how the Romans designed a machine to control crowds and decide human fate. Welcome to the Colosseum. The Colosseum broke ground in 72 AD and was completed in just about 8 years, an almost unbelievable pace for the ancient world. It's nearly 189 meters long, 156 meters wide, and stands about as tall as a 15-story building. It could hold up to 70,000 people, basically the size of a modern stadium. Try to picture that. Nearly 2,000 years ago. No heavy machinery. No modern steel. No industrial cranes. And yet the Romans created a massive machine of stone and concrete, calculated down to every single arch. But that size is only the outer shell. What matters is how it operates, how it guides the crowd, hides secrets beneath the arena floor, and lets the ground itself decide its fate. And now, let's explore the fascinating truths about the Colosseum, the machine that swallowed 50,000 people. If you stand outside the Colosseum, you'll see those arches repeating all the way around the structure. But they weren't built for Instagram photos. They were the crowd control system. More than 80 entrances surround the arena. Each entrance is numbered. Each spectator has their own route. The corridors are designed in circular and radial patterns, so tens of thousands of people can reach their seats in just minutes. Today, if a stadium traps people in a human traffic jam for an hour after a championship, we'd call that an organizational crisis. The Romans solved that problem. Before the world had structural steel, before loudspeakers, and definitely before security teams in neon reflective vests, they turned stone and concrete into a system that ran as smoothly as a navigation app. The 80 AD version. 50,000 people in, 50,000 people out. Less chaos than a concert parking lot. And once everyone was settled in their seats, the Colosseum flipped to a deeper layer of itself, the underground world beneath the arena. The crowd above sees golden sand, but beneath that sand is one of the most complex stage machines of the ancient world. Under the arena floor of the Colosseum is the hypogeum, a network of corridors, holding rooms, and animal cages running beneath the entire arena. Not just 1 or 2 rooms, but a full 2-level underground structure, divided into sections, routed like a system, and engineered with careful load calculations. The Romans installed dozens of wooden lifts, run by pulleys, rotating shafts, and human muscle. Each system could lift an animal weighing hundreds of kilos, from the darkness to the arena floor in just seconds. Remember, this is the 1st century. No engines, no electricity, no modern hydraulics, just ropes turning wheels, and crews below working in sync like a professional stage tech team. If Hollywood existed in 80 AD, they probably would have come here to learn how to create special effects. You're in the audience. The sand is empty. Suddenly, the arena floor trembles. A trapdoor snaps open. A wild beast bursts up into the roar of the crowd. Not magic. Mechanics. The Colosseum wasn't just a place to host fights. It was a machine built to manufacture moments. And once you can control the ground, you still have another problem. How do you shade 50,000 people under the Mediterranean sun? A massive canopy like a ship on land. You can control the ground, but you still can't control the sun. Summer in Rome is no joke. And 50,000 people sitting under direct sunlight for hours is not exactly a recipe for a stable empire. So what did the Romans do? They pulled a massive canopy over the entire arena. That system was called the velarium. It wasn't a fixed roof. It was a huge fabric network, stretched with ropes, anchored around the perimeter, and adjusted with pulleys. And here's the best part. The velarium was operated by Roman naval sailors. Not because they were short on workers, but because people who handle sails understand wind, tension, and rigging better than anyone. Back then, the Colosseum was like a giant ship stranded in the middle of Rome, and its canopy worked like a real sail system. Wind shifts? They adjust the ropes. Sun changes? They adjust the coverage. All of it happening above the crowd, without interrupting the spectacle below. So what does that mean? The Colosseum didn't just control the ground, it controlled the sky above it. But to survive nearly 2,000 years, its engineering had to be stronger than sun and wind. The material formula that let it live for nearly 2,000 years. You can build big, but to last 2,000 years, you have to build right. The Colosseum wasn't made from just one material. The exterior is load-bearing travertine. Inside is volcanic stone and Roman concrete made from lime and volcanic ash. And the wild part is, this concrete doesn't weaken over time. It reacts chemically with water and forms mineral structures that make it more stable as time goes on. Combined with an arch system that distributes force, the whole structure works like a massive load-sharing network. So when earthquakes hit, it didn't collapse completely. It cracked. It lost sections, but it stayed standing. And those wounds are still there today. The holes in the walls. Look closely at the Colosseum's walls, and you'll see hundreds of small rectangular holes. Not from war. Those were once the slots for iron clamps that locked the stone blocks together. The Romans didn't just stack stone. They pinned it with metal. And then, centuries later, people began chiseling into the walls to pull the iron out. Each clamp that disappeared made the structure a little weaker. Nature cracked it. Humans hollowed it out. And those holes still remain, like scars on a machine that was slowly dismantled piece by piece. Entertainment as control. The Colosseum wasn't built just for entertainment. It was built to manage emotion. Admission was often free. Bread was handed out to the people. The games were held regularly. The Romans even had a phrase for it. Bread and circuses. When the crowd is fed and swept up in violent spectacle, they ask fewer questions, less frustration, less resentment, less rebellion. So the Colosseum wasn't just a stadium. It was a tool to stabilize society. But to pull that off, the Romans were even more precise than that. They didn't let everyone sit together. Social order carved into the seating. Inside the Colosseum, you weren't just watching a fight. You knew exactly who you were. The seats closest to the arena floor were for senators and the powerful elite. The emperor had his own section prominent, impossible to miss. The higher you went, the lower your status. Women and common citizens sat in the top tiers. Slaves and the poorest sat farthest from the center of power. The Colosseum didn't need a rule book. The architecture spoke for itself. Where you sat, that's where your place in society was. This arena didn't just draw a line between life and death. It drew a line between social classes, right in front of 50,000 people. And inside that system, there were gates with even more meaning than any seat. The gates that decided fate. Inside the Colosseum, not every gate was the same. There was an entrance for the procession, where gladiators walked out to applause. And there was another gate, for the people who wouldn't be coming back. That gate was called the Porta Libitinaria, named after the Roman goddess of funerals. If you left through that gate, the crowd above already knew what had just happened. Architecture here didn't just guide traffic. It told a story of life and death. You enter with honor. You might leave in glory, or you don't. And when a person's fate is decided by a doorway, the Colosseum stops being just an engineering masterpiece. It becomes the symbol of something even bigger. The numbers in the stone. When people step into the Colosseum, most visitors only look up at the massive arches. But if you look closely at the corridors and seating steps, you'll see symbols and numbers carved directly into the stone. That's not ancient graffiti. That's the seat navigation system. Each ticket matched a gate. Each gate led to a section. Each section had clearly marked rows. The Romans figured out how to move tens of thousands of people by literally carving the directions into the building. No digital signs, no loudspeakers, just stone and logic. The Colosseum wasn't built only to impress. It was built to run smoothly down to the tiniest detail. But there's one more detail that most people only notice when they look up at the missing half. The Colosseum is famous because it's missing half. Here's a very Rome kind of paradox. One of the most famous landmarks on Earth is famous because it isn't whole. Today, the Colosseum looks like someone took a bite out of a donut. But the strange thing is, the more missing it is, the more it haunts you. And the real question isn't, who destroyed it? It's, why did it collapse on one side? This is where the story gets chilling. The Colosseum was built in a valley between Rome's hills. Before that, this area had an artificial lake connected to Nero's palace complex. The Romans filled in the lake, reinforced the foundation carefully, and only then built the arena. But the ground remembers. You can fill in a lake. You can compress the soil. But you can't turn land that used to be wet and soft into solid rock through sheer willpower. And then in 1349, a major earthquake hit Rome. When the ground shook, the Colosseum did what every circular structure tries to do. It tried to spread the force everywhere, stripped to build Rome. After half of it collapsed, the Colosseum wasn't just a ruin. It became a quarry. Travertine was removed block by block. Iron clamps were pulled from the walls. Its materials were used to build new structures, including St. Peter's Basilica. Imagine a national symbol being dismantled piece by piece to build other symbols. Sounds like a contradiction, but that's Rome. The Colosseum didn't disappear. It just got reborn somewhere else. And the irony is, only after centuries of being harvested, people finally started calling it a heritage site worth protecting. From arena to memorial, a place that once echoed with cheers for deadly combat, later became a place of prayer. By the 18th century, popes declared the Colosseum a memorial site for Christian martyrs. Stone removal was banned. Preservation began. An arena of violence became a sacred symbol. It sounds contradictory, but maybe that's why it's still standing. Not because it's intact, not because it's perfect, but because across the centuries, people kept giving it new meanings. And that is what kept the Colosseum alive longer than stone ever could. Next time you see the Colosseum, don't just look at the massive arches. Remember the corridors that swallowed 50,000 people. Remember the underground world where the ground could open at any moment. Remember the gates that decided fate. And remember, half of it is gone, because the ground beneath it never forgave. If this perspective made a familiar monument feel completely different, hit subscribe so you can explore more world-changing structures through a new lens. In your opinion, what's the most fascinating thing about the Colosseum? The gates? The underground world? Or the ground beneath it? And let me know in the comments.